Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents OtherSide of Fear by Ashley Claudy, narrated by Rebecca Estrella. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Dylan Thomas. 1. Almost. My stomach rolled and skin was clammy. Hot and cold warred inside me, erupting in beads of sweat on my skin. Bright orbs danced in my vision, blocking the small audience from view. Closing my eyes, I swallowed hard, forcing saliva down my dry throat, and replayed my conversation with Gage in my head.
You don't have to do this if you're not ready, but I know you can.
I feel like I'm going to throw up. What if I throw up? Panic had already taken up residence in me, a strong vine twisting and choking out everything else.
Then you throw up.
He lifted his shoulders easily, a beautiful smile on those full lips. His hands circled around me, pulling me into his body, and I was able to relax slightly. I opened my eyes, the spots gone, the ring clear. Coach was behind me, removing my silk robe. Sylvie was next to him, encouraging me. You've got this, Regan. You're ready. More than ready. That girl doesn't stand a chance. She squeezed my shoulders with firm hands. Loosen up some.
Babe, look at me.
Even in the dim lighting of the changing room, his blue eyes were bright. But all amusement was gone, his tone serious.
You've been training. You're prepared. You know physically you're the better boxer. The only thing that can get in the way is your fear.
His hands slid over my shoulders, down my arms.
If you're not ready for this, we can leave right now.
His grip tightened, keeping me from pulling away.
You can do whatever you want, and I'll be right there. Go out there and try, but if it's too much, walk out.
I shook my head, dropping my eyes from his. I couldn't allow myself to think of an escape. I can't do that. They're counting on me. If I don't do this, they'll probably kick me off the team. He lifted my chin with his fingers, making me meet his eyes, a cocky glint sparking in them.
Do you know who your husband is? You don't need this damn college team. You could throw up all over that ring, and I'd still have you boxing next week if that's what you wanted to do.
Rolling my shoulders and shaking my arms, I turned around, facing the audience. I found Gage in the front row, and my nerves slowed their rapid-fire assault. He inclined his head towards me, and I could see the question in his eyes. Was I all right? Could I go through with this? I nodded and gave a tight smile in reassurance. Just knowing he was there was enough. Turning back towards the ring, I stretched my neck as I faced my opponent and waited for the announcer to finish. The bell cut through my anxiety, my body propelling me forward towards the girl without thought. She was tall and thin, and held her body awkwardly, like she didn't fit her long limbs. I leaned, dodging her glove as she jabbed towards me with her right, and blocked a left jab with my arm. Then she pulled her arms back to cover her face. Her reach was long, but punches sloppy. I almost felt bad for what I was about to do. Almost. Her attack, no matter how weak, was enough to spark my adrenaline. Excitement replaced the fear and anxiety pumping through me, energizing me. I jabbed her stomach and followed with a wide hook to the side of her head. She crumpled forward, but stayed on her feet, her eyes wide. I swung again and connected with the opposite side of her head. She dropped to the canvas with a thud. Stepping back, I didn't take my eyes off her. She wasn't knocked out, but she was curled up on the mat. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish, no air reaching her lungs. I waited for her to push herself up and return to the fight, but she didn't. The ref reached 10 and declared me the winner. I was almost disappointed that it all ended so quickly, just as I was getting into it. For a second, I wished Dexter had been there to shake me out of my thoughts and pump me up about my win, but the rush soon came on its own, flooding me with excitement. I did it, and it had been easy. I could keep doing this. Sylvie was in my corner, rubbing her hands together. Raging Regan, this might be our year. With you, we might have a chance of making it regionally. Coach slid between the ropes, smile bright as he smoothed his gray hair back on the sides.
Hell, maybe even nationally.
His face lit up with his dream, but I'd be lying if I said the idea wasn't enticing. I wanted it too. But I looked past them as Gage pulled himself up onto the canvas. Everything else faded away, and only then did I feel breathless. The match hadn't touched me, not like his presence did. His lips curled, and he extended one arm to me. My body was already there, gravitating towards him.
I told you,
he started, but I gripped his collar, pulling him towards me, silencing him with my lips. For once, I was able to kiss him after my fight, and I wasn't going to waste the moment. I could feel his laughter bubbling out of him, his breath bouncing over my lips. So I slid my hands around his neck, pulling him in closer, sliding my tongue in his mouth. That stopped his laughter, and he wrapped his arms around my waist, lifting me to him, off of my feet. The ropes wedged between us pressed into my stomach, but I didn't care about that, only that it was a barrier from his body. He lowered me down until my feet were firmly back on the mat, reluctantly returning me to the ground and letting the outside world back into our bubble.
Lawson, hold up.
A voice cut through the buzz of the gym just as I exited the locker room. Gage pushed off the wall he had been waiting on, saying a quick goodbye to the group of people he'd been talking to. He grabbed my hand as he turned to the caller.
Yeah?
At the same time, I turned towards the voice with a raised eyebrow. Coach pushed through the concession line and stopped in front of Gage and I.
Lawson.
He paused between us with a small laugh and shrugged.
Both of you. You leaving already? Not going to stick around for the next fight?
Not tonight.
Hey, Lightning. Good fight last week.
Someone yelled as they passed by. Gage nodded to the person and then continued.
We've got plans.
I didn't know about that and hoped it was a lie. I wanted nothing more than to get him alone and work out this adrenaline and energy coursing through me. Gripping Gage's hand tighter and stepping closer to his body, I smiled politely at Coach Finnegan.
Well, I'll see you at practice on Sunday then?
At my nod, he continued.
Hell of a job tonight, girlie. Hell of a job.
Gage dropped my hand and slid his arm around me, turning me away from the older man and towards the door. Thanks. See you Sunday, I called over my shoulder with a giggle as Gage whispered in my ear.
I need you alone. Now.
His voice was low and heated, and his breath sent chills down my skin. Escaping out of the side door, we made our way to the deserted parking garage. Even with the crazy city traffic, Gage had insisted on driving. The garage was filled with cars, but empty of people. Our whispered teasing echoed in the concrete space, and our steps were even louder, bouncing off the walls around us. He laughed into my neck, swinging me in front of him so I was forced to walk backwards as he dragged his nose over my skin.
Babe, I knew you could do it,
he growled as his lips reached my ear.
You were hot as hell in that ring. That girl didn't stand a chance.
His lips claimed mine, and his hands slid to my ass, easily lifting me onto him in an instant. I gripped him tighter, wrapping my legs around his waist with a small moan. The slow burn that had been simmering low in my stomach erupted.
My sexy fighter,
he mumbled, sliding his lips over my chin to my neck. My head fell back with a laugh, giving him better access. I loved the shocks of sensation he sent through me, all the way to my toes. He pushed me against the SUV, reminding me of where we were. Hell if I could stop this, though. I didn't want to stop him. My champ. I blew into his ear before sucking the lobe into my mouth, and my fingers curled into his hair. He walked us around the car and then opened the passenger side door, setting me on the seat. With his hands free now, he slid them under my shirt. His head dipped down to my neckline, nipping and licking the skin at my collar and completely stealing my air in a rush of fire. He froze, and I popped my eyes open. Before I even registered what stopped him, he was up and whipped around. He had one gun pressed to the man's chest in front of him, and another aimed at a second man's head.
"Drop it,"
Gage demanded of the second man, who had a gun vaguely pointed in my direction. I sat up, drained of all heat as I processed the scene. The taller man in front of Gage, with spiky black hair and black eyes, didn't have a gun. Gage must have taken it, because I didn't recognize the gun he had aimed at the man. The second man, a shorter man with a bald head, lowered his gun. He was looking directly into the barrel of Gage's gun, a gun I recognized, the one he carried on him at all times.
"Good."
Gage's voice was calm, his face blank.
"Now, Regan, go back inside. Wait by the locker room. I'll find you soon."
He didn't take his eyes off the men in front of us. I was already reaching under the seat. I had hoped I'd been paranoid in thinking I would need this again one day, but it proved useful now. Pulling out the gun I had strapped there, I clicked off the safety and stepped out of the car. Aiming directly at the second man, I removed the gun from his hand and stood beside Gage. "I'm not going anywhere." I felt Gage look at me, and I let my gaze meet his out of the corner of my eye. He was smiling as he shook his head, but he surprised me by placing a brief kiss on my neck.
"Well, okay then."
Gage slid one gun back into his waist, looking between both men.
"Who's going to talk first? And tell me what the fuck you think you're doing."
2. Smoke and mirrors. Neither man responded to Gage's question. They stared at us, lips closed. The silence stretched, filling with tension till it burst with a gunshot. Gage had moved fast. He shot the man in the foot with one hand and caught his crumpling body with the other, pressing him to the car at his back. All within one explosive heartbeat. My explosive heartbeat. The shot man's moan echoed in my head like grinding metal, but I strengthened my grip on the gun in my hand and feigned confidence while my heart hid in my stomach.
"Someone probably heard that, so talk now or the next bullet will be in your head."
Gage pressed his gun to the tall man's dark hair.
"You've got till 3. 1, 2... "Alessandra!"
the spiky-haired man practically yelled, eyes twisting in an attempt to see the gun pressed to his temple. Gage released his grip on him, and he sunk to the ground.
"Alessandra!"
Gage questioned the bald man at the end of my pistol, but he didn't respond except to glare at his companion, who was knelt on the ground, gripping his foot. The purr of a motor starting from across the garage stilled us, and then headlights brightened the area. Gage yanked the man on the ground up by the collar of his shirt and pushed him into our SUV.
"Get back here,"
he ordered me with a nod of his head. When I took up his spot behind the door, he stepped in front and pressed the gun to the bald man's back, out of view of the passing car. Except it didn't pass. Headlights spotlighted our group, and then a sleek black limo eased to a stop directly in front of us. One of the tinted windows slid down.
"Get in, Lawson,"
an unseen female called from inside the darkened interior, just as another car pulled up behind it. The drivers of both cars stepped out, 2 gorilla-looking men. One opened the back door to the limo, the other approached us. He spoke in a rough language, Russian possibly, and the bald man with Gage responded in the same quick tongue. The man bleeding all over the floor of our car tried to call out to them, but I stepped closer and pressed my gun into his neck to silence him. I kept looking to Gage, but his back was to me. The driver stopped in front of Gage and jerked his head to the open limo door.
"You can go with Mrs. Rusnik. I'll take care of these 2.
My blood froze, cracking my veins. Alessandra Rusnik, Anatoly's wife.
"Regan, you should go inside now."
Gage's voice was deceptively calm, but he wasn't fooling me. I didn't want to argue with him in front of everyone, especially not these people, but I was not leaving him.
Eat thee.
The big man snapped at the bald one, nodding to the car behind the limo. The bald man stepped towards the car, fearing the big man more than a bullet from Gage. The man at the end of my gun began to rise as well. "Gage?" I questioned, adding pressure to the trigger.
Let him go,
he responded, stepping towards the limo.
What do you want, Alessandra?
Oh, get in. She was quick. And your new wife can join us. I just want to talk. He braced one arm on the limo, leaning down to the open door.
Something about your approach doesn't make me trust that you just want to talk.
His voice held a hint of teasing, almost a laugh, and I failed to find the humor in his words. I closed the door to the SUV and stepped closer to him, heart hammering in my chest. What was I to do? You weren't responding to my messages, and last time we saw each other you put a gun in my face. Her voice was smooth, sending chills over my skin.
Now get in.
Gage turned towards me, but didn't step away from the car. There was a warning in his glance, but something else, too, and I wish I'd asked him more questions about his time with Rusnik. Before he could speak, she beckoned to me. Get in, sweetheart. Damn her for sounding like her husband. I didn't break eye contact with Gage until he reached out his hand for me. He guided me into the car with a regretful acceptance and followed behind me. The big man shut the door behind us as we slid in. Gage took the seat across from Alessandra, against the partition separating the front of the limo, and I sat beside him. Alessandra's dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and a knee-length black dress hugged her body. Her sharp eyes looked me over, her expression critical. Gage slid closer to me, so close I could feel the heat from his body, and he draped an arm over the seat behind me. It eased some of the fear and doubt that had been winding around me, but didn't break it completely. As the car started moving, driving out of the parking garage, I resisted the urge to lean into him. Instead, I sat up tall, trying to mimic the power that radiated from the woman sitting opposite us. She bounced a cigarette on the console between her fingers, packing it down. Her movements were slow and deliberate as the silence settled around us, pressure building. Lighting the cigarette between her lips, she cracked the window at her side and blew out the smoke, eyes never leaving us.
What do you want?
Gage cut through the tension. The limo pulled onto the street, barely moving in the traffic. The lights of the city lit up the interior of the car. Horns and people chattering filled the space around us, seeping through the barely open window. She took a long drag, eyes narrowing as her red lips pressed together, but she didn't look at Gage. She ignored him completely. I met you before. She blew out a stream of smoke. But I didn't pay much attention then. Didn't think much of you. She cocked her head, eyes meeting mine. I should have, because others paid attention, including my husband. She tossed her words at me, but then turned to look at Gage with a tight smile pulling at her lips. And Gage. Cut the shit, Gage demanded before the last words even left her lips. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees.
You didn't do all this to talk about her. What is it that you want?
She pressed the cigarette back to her mouth, unfazed by his sharp tone. You're right. I'm here because of the promises you made to Anatoly.
Anatoly is not in the position to collect on anything. Even if he was, I paid him back with my silence. So find someone else.
All I could see was his back, since he was still leaned forward, but he sounded sure and forceful. Her cleavage shook as she laughed, but it wasn't one of amusement. You proved loyal in prison and didn't rat on anyone. That's the only reason we haven't killed you. She flicked her cigarette out the window and rolled it back up. That and your name. You've got some fame behind you. My muscles twitched with every threat she made, and my hand hovered over my gun tucked in my jeans, but I forced myself to sit back and wait.
Who's we? You and Anatoly? Or you and the men that took over?
Gage, you really haven't been keeping up, have you? I'm disappointed. She shook her head, but leaned towards Gage, eyes brightening. The Rusniks have joined with the Kabanovs, so the we I'm talking about is larger than you can imagine.
Then you don't need me. Not if you have Kabanov's backing.
You're wrong. Anatoly will be out this year, and I'm making sure his rightful spot isn't lost in the merger. You owe it to him. It's your fault he is where he is now. If you wouldn't have run off that night, then...
We all fucking know that's not true. He's where he is because his ego was too big, and he didn't stick to my plan. I don't owe shit. We're done here.
Gage looked up at the sky rises out the window.
We'll get out here.
The partition behind us slid down as he reached for the door.
Stay seated. We'll drop you off back at your car when she's done talking.
I spun around towards the speaker, a man in the passenger seat behind me. Just hear me out. This arrangement could help us both, Alessandra offered. The door wasn't opening for Gage, and he sat back down beside me.
What the fuck are you expecting, Alessandra?
I want to give you a club, here in New York. All of Rusnik's assets were seized, and any incoming money is questioned. I need you to be the cover. You will be the legal owner, the face of the club. Nobody will question an athlete using his money to open a business. It happens all the time. The best part? You'll get a salary from it without having to do a thing. We'll run it.
That's it?
His question stabbed at me. That's it? He should stick with, hell no. She put out her hands, palms up, with a smile that was anything but innocent. That's it. I'm not interested in the gambling Anatoly was part of. Neither are the Kabanovs. They're all business, straight trafficking, and we need a filter for our share of the money. That's where you come in with the club.
I want to talk with Victor first. That's who's running it still, right? Victor Kabanov?
She smiled like he agreed, and I had to admit, he probably just did. I'll set up a meeting. She pulled out her phone, and her fingers were swift, tapping on the screen. I grabbed Gage's elbow, and he sat back next to me, but wouldn't meet my eyes. He pulled my hand from his arm, squeezing it in his.
Later. I'll explain later.
He spoke so low, I could barely hear him. Victor can meet with you tomorrow. She looked past us to the front seat. Ivan, we can drop them off now. I had planned on demanding answers the moment we were alone, but I couldn't. Riding in the SUV, I struggled to wrap my mind around everything that just went down. The mat at my feet was missing, rolled up and shoved in the trunk since it was covered in blood, the blood from the man Gage had shot. And that wasn't even the most shocking part of the night. That wasn't the part that had me silent, doubting the life we had been building. And that was the reason I couldn't talk. I didn't want to confirm that this past year had been all smoke and mirrors, an illusion that I hadn't been able to see through. But the silence wasn't helping me hold on to it. It was slipping away, spiraling down. Gage was just as silent, and I couldn't read him. He focused on the road, never pulling his eyes away, but it was clear his thoughts were elsewhere. With every step we took, I retreated further into myself. When the door to our penthouse closed, Gage reached for me and pulled me to him, wrapping his arms around my waist. I pushed on his chest to keep a space between us and stopped his lips from meeting mine with a turn of my head.
Regan.
His hands gripped my hips, squeezing, keeping me from pulling away further. The warning in his voice lit my fuse, and the dark sadness I was feeling went up in flames. No! I shoved away from him, taking a few steps back. You need to talk to me. What the hell happened tonight?" His eyes met mine, hurt creasing his brows as he took a step towards me.
"I don't know."
"Don't." I stopped him in his tracks. "She said you hadn't been answering her messages. What did that mean? And when was the last time you saw her? There's a lot you do know that I should know." My anger was draining as the reality settled on me. I needed to sit down. He followed me to the living room couch, an oversized charcoal-colored sofa that was angled towards the fireplace and TV in the corner. I welcomed the shadows cast from the lights of the city skyline through our large bay windows, wanting to hide my emotions in them as much as I wanted to rip Gage's secrets from them.
"I haven't seen her since before."
He met my eyes, and I knew what he meant. We avoided talking about that time or mentioning those names, only referencing events around it as before or after. Before the hospital, or after jail. But really, we meant the moments that put us in the hospital, that almost put him in prison. And, as always, even the vague mention was like ice water poured on me, freezing me and stealing my breath. I pulled the red throw pillow into my lap and gripped the suede material in my fingers, focusing on the swirl pattern stitched into it. "But she's been contacting you since then." It wasn't a question. I knew she had been. She said so. But he'd never told me.
"Not really."
Cutting my eyes to him, my anger returned. I needed it, the strength it gave me, the high I felt. It was better than the low of sadness. Weakness. His eyes nervously moved over me, but his lips remained stubbornly closed. "She either has or she hasn't. There is no maybe." My teeth were grinding, jaw aching as I attempted to keep control, to keep from exploding. The pillow crumpled in my lap as my grip tightened. "I'm dead serious when I say you need to explain. And you need to explain now." He rubbed the back of his head, letting out a long stream of air.
"I didn't answer any of the messages. They never were sent directly to me, but our security told me that Alessandra was trying to contact me."
I loosened my grip some and tried to release the tension in my shoulders. He was waiting on my reaction, and I hated that he was making me pull the story from him. "How often?"
"Only twice."
He pressed his palms together on his lap, dropping his eyes to them.
"I should have told you."
"When? When did she try to contact you?"
"It's only been since we got back from Vegas, since my flight."
"Since we got married." My heart burned. We'd only been married a week.
"I thought it was going to be about me throwing my next fight, like they had wanted."
He opened his hands wide and looked back up at me with a slight smile.
"But it's not. I'm going to talk to Victor tomorrow and make sure."
His smile, even as small as it was, twisted the knife in my stomach. "So, that's it? You're going to just hop back in with them after all this time? You told me you were done." I was scooting away from him, panic tripping my heart.
"We both knew this was going to happen, that I couldn't be out for good. I've done too much. Know too much. It was only a matter of time."
My head was shaking, denying his words. "I didn't know that. You didn't say that." Tears stung my eyes as I rose to my feet. "We came here, to New York, to get away from them." Looking around the room at our beautiful space that I had been so happy in only this morning made me sick. I wanted to take a bat to it all. I gripped my hands to keep from reaching for the lamp.
"You said you'd stick around no matter what, even when I was in."
He rose to his feet, a quiet desperation in his voice. I closed my eyes against the look in his. The accusation in his tone was enough to crush me. That wasn't what this was about, and he wasn't going to twist this on me. Meeting his gaze, I put steel in my words. "I never said I was going anywhere." Worry fell off of him, and he stood up taller with the release of his breath. I put my hand up to keep him from
Sample complete. Ready to continue?